Camry, Corolla, Motorola, motor oil. We'll get to the bottom of it today, just trust me. My ambition for this video is to help the less car-obsessed people confidently differentiate between models. Today we'll be discussing the Toyota Camry and Toyota Corolla generations since the 1990s. Yes, both models have been around longer than that, but these are the ones you're most likely to see. As a quick note, most of today's information comes courtesy of Car Gurus and Edmunds. Now let's get into it. Introduced for U.S. markets for the 1992 model year was the XV10 Toyota Camry. Measuring bumper to bumper 187 inches long by just under 70 inches wide, this generation Camry came standard with a 4-cylinder but had an optional V6. When new, that sportier 6-cylinder Camry could produce a respectable for the time 188 horsepower and 203 pound-feet of torque while averaging 24 miles per gallon on the highway. Additionally, the XV10 could comfortably transport you and 3 to 4 passengers, along with a duffel bag for each of you in the nearly 15 cubic feet of trunk space. If sedans aren't your style, however, you could opt for a Camry wagon, which, if you kicked half your passengers out and laid the rear seats down, could expand to have 75 cubic feet of storage space. The 7th generation Corolla E100, introduced for the 1993 model year in the North American market, was considerably smaller than the XV10, and that's a theme that will continue throughout this video, as the XV10 and all generations thereafter of Camry serve as Toyota's midsize offering, while the E100 and all generations thereafter of Corolla serve as the compact offering. And that's probably the most important part of this whole video. Small 4-door, Corolla. Decent size 4-door, Camry. Anyway, the E100's maxed out at 168.9 inches long and approximately 66.3 inches wide, which, if you recall, is about 1.5 feet shorter and 4 inches narrower than the Camry. The trunk space has a respectable 12.7 cubic feet of capacity, which is respectable for a small vehicle. However, you could also get a Corolla wagon, which would give you a whopping 65 total cubic feet of cargo space. Now, the Corolla did not have an optional V6. Toyota said you will get a 4-cylinder and you will like it. Now, that said, these Corollas could get up to and even over 30 miles per gallon on the highway. It might be a little bit cramped on a road trip, but with all the money you saved on gas, maybe you could spend the extra money on a king-size room. For the 1997 model year, a new Camry would release the XV20 and run through the 2001 model year. The Camry grew a whole inch, now measuring 188.6 inches long and just exceeding 70 inches in width. You could even fold the rear seats down in continuation from the trunk to create more cargo area, a feature still employed today. This generation Camry also had an optional 6-cylinder, albeit slightly less peppy than the previous generations. The trade-off, however, was a 17% fuel efficiency increase, taking your average to 28 miles per gallon on the highway. 1997 would also mark the first time Toyota's Camry would be crowned the best-selling car in America, a streak of dominance that has gone on largely uninterrupted to this day, nearly 3 decades later. The 8th generation Corolla E110 would begin with the 1998 model year and would be the first to feature the renowned 1ZZ FE engine, which I will share a fun fact about later on. Aside from being very resilient, the 1ZZ FE was also made out of lighter materials, which made the vehicles it powered more efficient. As a result, this generation Corolla could average up to 36 miles per gallon on the highway, a 20% improvement from the E100, while also being an inch longer at 170 inches from bumper to bumper and marginally wider than the previous generation. In the United States, the E110 would continue into the 2002 model year. Following in 2003, Toyota would release the 9th generation E130 Corolla to the North American market. Now, remember when I said I had a fun fact about the 1ZZ? Well, here it is, and buckle up because it's a little bit more complicated than that. You see, in order to cater to the American market's need for speed, or perception thereof, another vehicle was born, the Toyota Matrix, which you may also know as the Pontiac Vibe. It was intended to be a sporty hatchback variant of the E130 Corolla, and honestly, it does look more alive. Mechanically speaking, however, there was almost zero difference between the Matrix and the Corolla. Except for, and here's the fun fact about the 1ZZ, you could get a factory-supported bolt-on supercharger from Toyota Racing Development, TRD, that would boost your power output in the Matrix by 40 wheel horsepower. Stock, these things had 130 at the crank, maybe 115 horsepower to the wheels. That's a 35% power increase, my friends. Digressing, the E130 Corolla was available with said 1ZZ, and I'm sure you could fit the supercharger to it, but that's not what we're talking about. For 2005 and 2006, you could get your Corolla with the more peppy 2ZZ, which was developed in collaboration with Yamaha. The 2ZZ was rated for 150 wheel horsepower and 31 miles per gallon on the highway, while the 1ZZ continued to average 36 miles per gallon on the highway, with some drivers topping 40 miles per gallon. Post-facelift, 2005 and up, E130 Corollas measured a whopping 178 inches from bumper to bumper and 67 inches wide, making it 8 inches longer and 1 inch wider than the previous generation, proving not even compacts can avoid car bloat. Speaking of larger cars, up next is the 5th generation XV30 Camry. However, it is the 1st generation of Camry to not feature a wagon variant, a trend that continues to this day and makes me horribly sad. You could still get a V6 in your Camry, however, and towards the end of the generation, the offering would improve from a 192 horsepower 3-liter available in the 2002 and 2003 models to a 225 crank horsepower 3.3-liter in 2004 to 2006 models. These later model year and higher powered Camrys could still average 27 miles per gallon on the highway, while the more economically inclined 4-cylinders could average over 30 miles per gallon across all years. The XV30 was just shy of 190 inches in length and around 71 inches in width, and had just a bit under 17 cubic feet of trunk space. Not bad. Moving on to the next generation of Camry, the XV40, I'm reminded of something my elementary school gym teacher used to tell us. Nobody ever stays the same. You either get better or you get worse. And I feel like Shoichiro Toyota must have been told that a lot, because even with the Camry being the best-selling car in America for the majority of the last decade, Toyota continued to make it better. For the first time ever in 2007, you could get a hybrid Toyota Camry, and it didn't matter if you were in town or on the highway, it was rated for 34 miles per gallon either way. As you could guess, the more ginger-footed drivers could average close to 40 miles per gallon. Besides the new hybrid, you could still get the very reliable 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, or you could opt for the 268 horsepower 3.5-liter V6 paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission. This 6-cylinder Camry is still very reliable and somewhat peppy for a commuter car. The dimensions didn't change much from the previous generation aside from losing some trunk space. However, the XV40 does have a notably different exterior appearance. Along with the XV40 Camry would come a new generation of Corolla, the E140, spanning model years 2009 to 2013. At this point, the Corolla truly did embody the baby Camry moniker. They are nearly identical to the untrained eye, the only obvious difference being the Corolla measuring nearly a full foot shorter at 178.7 inches long and slightly slimmer at 69 inches wide. Yet again, your engine options were a small 1.8-liter 4-cylinder or a slightly less small 2.4-liter 4-cylinder. The 1.8-liter 4-cylinder could average 35 miles per gallon on the highway, which isn't anything overly exciting, but saving gas money in a vehicle that will outlive most of its owners is still very worthy of praise. Picking up where the XV40 left off is the XV50 Toyota Camry, which is still the best-selling car in America, by the way, at this point. The 2012 to 2017 Camry saw the return of the hybrid system mated to a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder and CVT, continuously variable transmission. These hybrid Camrys were rated to average over 40 miles per gallon. Remember, this is a mid-sized car, folks. That's pretty crazy. The base engine option was also a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder, and the 3.5 V6 would return with the same power output as the previous generation. Both of these engines were paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission, helping make for a smooth trip. The V6 slowly sips fuel to the tune of 30-ish miles per gallon on the highway, while the 4-cylinder was still capable of approximately 35. The XV50 is an inch longer than the XV40 and offers half a cubic foot more of trunk space. Really leaning into the economical trend with the Corolla, Toyota made things very simple for potential E170 buyers. 4 core trims, 1.5 engine options. In the L trim, the base, you got a 1.8-liter 4-cylinder and a 4-speed automatic. The LE was the next step up, and the top of the line for the early E170s was the S trim, which had the exact same 1ZZ as the base, but an optional 6-speed manual. Or there was the LE Eco, powered by the 1ZZ FAE engine, but paired to a CVT. LE Eco drivers could expect to average around 42 miles per gallon on the highway, while other trims could still expect 37 or 38 miles per gallon. I'm not sure how it's still a compact car given this generation Corolla could be up to 183 inches in length, just 4 inches shorter than the XV10 Camry we talked about at the start of the video, but I don't make the rules. For as economically inclined as Toyota was with the E170 Corolla and arguably with the XV50 Camry, things were markedly different for the XV70 generation. I don't even care about the base or hybrid 4-cylinder. The 3.5-liter 6-cylinder in this generation produced 301 horsepower and is paired to an 8-speed automatic. 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds and somehow rated for 30 miles per gallon on the highway. That's absolute insanity. Now, just because I don't care about the hybrid powertrain or the base 4-cylinder doesn't mean you folks don't. So it might be fun to know that the hybrid Camry XV70 averages over 50 miles per gallon on the highway, while the base 4-cylinder could still average around 44. Reminder, folks, this is still a mid-size car measuring 193 inches in length and offering 15 cubic feet of trunk space. The current generation Corolla, beginning with the 2020 model year, is the E210. Most notable from this generation is the GR Corolla, which has been available since 2023. It's an absolute rocket ship, but I've heard rumors of Toyota denying warranty claims for GR Corollas that have exceeded speeds of 85 miles per hour. You could still get a manual transmission in several different trims of Corolla, not just the GR. Besides the 300 horsepower 1.6-liter 3-cylinder powering the GR, Corolla buyers could opt for a 1.8-liter gas, 1.8-liter hybrid, or the Dynamic Force 2-liter gas 4-cylinder. Hybrid E210s can average over 50 miles per gallon on the highway, while drivers of the Dynamic Force 2-liter can expect around 40 miles per gallon, and drivers with the regular 1.8-liter can expect slightly better numbers than that. The GR Corolla is not nearly as fuel efficient, but still averages a commendable 27 miles per gallon on the highway. The current generation of Camry, the XV80, started with the 2025 model year. To this point, the only engine offered is the 2.5-liter 4-cylinder hybrid. The trade-off, I suppose, is that now you can get an all-wheel drive Camry. Front-wheel drive models can average close to or over 50 miles per gallon on the highway and in town, while the all-wheel drive models can average around 45. Again, this is a mid-size car. Dimensions are nearly unchanged from the XV70, mostly due to Toyota further refining the GAK platform, which these generations are based on. And that's it! Probably wordier and way longer than a video comparing Corollas and Camrys would ever need to be, but now you know. Or at least you can reference this video when, you want to know. To recap, the Camry is always the bigger, more plump, 4-door car. The Corolla is smaller. The Corolla is almost exclusively a 4-cylinder across all generations, while most generations of Camry gave the option of a 4 or 6-cylinder. Both the Camry and Corolla and their respective drivetrains are very dependable vehicles if you make even the most bare minimum effort to keep up with the maintenance. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.